In this week's episode of Renovate Ed, we chat about how to love the home you have, because you don't need to wait for your forever home to create a space you love. We'll also dive into Angela Lerew's journey from DIY blogger to director of marketing in the design build world and what it's like being a woman in the industry. Whether you're looking for inspiration to embrace your current home or curious about navigating the world of construction, this conversation is packed with insights and encouragement.
Angela, welcome to Renovate Ed. It's good to have you
Thanks.
here.
It's good to be here.
Good. Because we've talked about it before, you know that I'm fascinated about your life as a blogger. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So we moved to Indiana in 2009 and had two small kids. Because we had moved, I was staying home with them and needed to stay busy. So it was before the big blogging boom, really. And so I had a friend who was doing websites. She's like, well, why don't you start a blog? You love doing home renovations and DIY stuff. And so it just started out as a hobby. And then 12 years later, I was still doing it full time and making an income out of it and learning along the way and making mistakes. But then,
That's fun. Very fun. And so you're a DIY blogger. What kind of renovation projects did you take on?
All different kinds. I did a couple of kitchen renovations. Those were probably the biggest. The other one would have been the backyard renovation. During COVID, everybody was doing gardens, and my daughter had begged for a garden. When we finished, she's like, Mom, I didn't really expect it to be that big. I tend to go overboard sometimes, but it was a beautiful garden. We have since moved. We loved it. It was great. It was big raised beds.
You said kitchen renovations. Was that
Yes.
your kitchen or family or?
So yeah, I did two of our own kitchens. When we first moved to Indiana and we bought our first house, we bought it knowing that it would need a renovation. But back then, the budget was pretty tight, so I had to get a little creative. I did have the cabinets done by someone, but everything else, either my dad came and helped and I learned how to do things. That was kind of the first big renovation where I was learning how to do the tile, and he was teaching me simple electrical things and
Fun stuff.
yeah. And so I've done a couple since then.
Oh, that's fun. We did something similar too, only family didn't help me learn. It was our family friend who was our contractor, and he taught my daughter and I how to do things. And we tiled our entire house, and tiling is work. It's such work.
I agree. It's not my
It's
favorite.
so beautiful, but it's a lot of work.
Yes. I like the end results. It's just the labor to get there sometimes is trying.
Yeah, it was hard work, but I enjoyed it. We also did ours during the pandemic as well. So it was like, what else were we going to do? We were stuck at home the whole time. So it gave us a ton of work to do, keep us busy, keep our minds focused. So that was all
It was a
good.
difficult time to find supplies, but if you could get them and wait for them, then you had plenty of time to do the projects.
So now you do something a little different. You're in the design world and remodeling world. What led to the change?
My kids were getting older, and I just kind of saw a shift in the blogging world. It was going more towards influencing, being on camera all the time and sharing your life and, all the things most people know what an influencer is today. And that just isn't really my personality. Don't enjoy being on camera all the time. And I was like, what does everybody want to hear about me for? So it kind of transferred into, well, I've learned so much blogging. I am a lifelong learner, and anytime I needed something done, I would learn how to do it. I learned how to build websites, and I worked with a lot of big brands when I was blogging, just those connections and how to navigate a lot of the marketing aspects. And so I decided to go into marketing. Now I'm a marketing director for design build firms.
I think that's really kind of neat. I really do. I think that whole transition is pretty cool. I would think a lot of people in your position with your company would have come from like maybe right out of college or did some sort of internship or something, but you're pulling from your own skill set that you built up, which I think is pretty fun. Do you enjoy your job?
I do. I really like it. It is nice to kind of merge my passion for design, even though I'm not the one designing. And a lot of my friends, I think, still get confused when I tell them I work for a design build firm. They're like, oh, what have you been designing lately? I'm like, well, I'm actually on the marketing side. So I don't get to actually do the designs, but I get to see the finished products and check out the construction sites as they're working on them. So
yeah, that's the fun stuff.
Yeah.
I always, my favorite part of my job is seeing the before photos from the appraisal and then the after photos on the progress and final inspections and just looking at, how far we've come and having played a small part helping to make that happen. Like those before and after photos are my favorite part of my job. I love to see
Yeah, there's definitely some amazing before and afters that I get to witness transforming as they're going through the process.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So way back when I was in college, I interned at US Steel. And so here I am. I'm in my late teens, early 20s. I'm this young girl in a steel mill full of guys. Now, this is I'm dating myself, like 20, 25 years ago plus. But I have to say, that was it was a tough environment for me. And the men, they were not easy. And oftentimes they made me do some of the grunt work. And I was like, dude, you got the muscles, you do this. But I found it kind of trying. I found it tough, just different, harder. And it's fine. It made me who I am. But I got to ask, now that you've switched and you're in this world, which is still, I think, dominated by men, do you find it difficult at all being a female in the construction or remodeling world?
I will say that I feel very lucky for the company that I work for. I would say they're inclusive and respectful and all the things. I will say when I was in the blogging world, I was at the big box stores a lot getting supplies.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a lot of men who worked there that were very biased. Got comments all the time like, well, who's actually doing this project? It was me, but
That's interesting.
and then a couple times when I was looking for supplies for certain things and they'd ask me what I was doing, they would basically tell me that was a stupid idea. But, just overcoming those assumptions.
That is so funny. So your troubles actually happened in your blogging career,
Yes.
not your current career.
Yeah. And I've heard some horror stories from other women in, the construction industry, and thankfully I have not encountered any of those.
Yeah,
And I think there's more women now. We do have a project manager who's a woman. I think it's a little more difficult for her, but she's kind of breaking through that stereotype.
And we kind of travel in the same circles, same network.
Mm-hmm.
And I see a lot of women involved too. And it seems like we just have a really good group of people in the circles in which we travel. I really enjoy the networking.
I agree. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're surrounded by great people, which makes life so much easier. Okay, so pulling from your DIY and your blogging days, and maybe even a little of your marketing experience, I'm going to go into design and ask for some tips and tricks and tap into your expertise. And I'm going to admit that I am like the world's worst designer. I am terrible at it. Nothing I do looks good. From putting together outfits to decorating my house to landscaping, like none of it. So when we were remodeling my house, I actually let my daughter pick out all the finishes. She picked out the floor. I mean, I signed off on it all, but I relied quite heavily on her eye, and she's got a beautiful eye. She's also very artistic. For people like me who don't have an artistic or imaginative bone in their body, what would you suggest in terms of design if somebody's struggling to decorate their home or come up with some kind of design ideas?
I had actually written some stuff back in the day and done a class. And honestly, the biggest thing I would say is get inspiration, which is very easy to do these days with Pinterest and Instagram. And if you kind of gather those photos of things that catch your eye and maybe put them in a folder or a collection together so that you can look at them at a glance. And then once you see all of them together, you can kind of pick out details that are kind of similar in everything. Maybe it's a color, maybe it's a texture or a wood tone. And once you kind of figure out, okay, well, I have 5 or 6 photos that have very similar color palettes, that will help you say, well, that's probably something that I should put in my home because that's what I'm drawn to. And then once you kind of figure that out, you can maybe start small. Like if it's something that's out of your comfort zone and not something that you normally would have, I would say try to maybe a guest bedroom or something that's kind of something that you can test, or even like a small area like an entryway, or just kind of test it out and see, and then go from there and you can start expanding.
Hey, if you're enjoying Renovate Ed, there's a super easy way to help us keep bringing you great content. Just hit that follow button. And if you know someone who's thinking about buying, renovating, or refinancing, share the podcast with them. Your support means the world and helps us reach more people who could use a little guidance on their home journey. So follow, share, and if you're feeling extra generous, leave a quick review. It really helps. Thanks for being part of the Renovate Ed community. Now, back to the episode.
That's a good idea. I like that. And it kind of resonates with me too, because now that I'm thinking about it, we had lived in the loft of a barn and we renovated that space. And then we moved back to our home after the horse died. And when we came back, we had some water intrusion issues and had to renovate this space. I actually learned a lot in the loft of the barn of what I liked or what I didn't like, which helped me and Kaya, my daughter, with this house too. And boy, did we live off of Pinterest. I mean, I was a Pinterest junkie. And every time the contractor would come, I thought he was going to get tired of me. I'm sure most contractors like, no, not again, you know? But I would show him something that I saw on Pinterest and I would be like, can we do this? And he would get all excited. He'd be like, yeah. And then after a while, he was bringing me things. He's like, hey, I had an idea on this. Can we try this? And one of those things was some decorative windows in between my kitchen and my living room. And when he showed it to me, they presented the idea. I was like, oh, yeah. And then later I found out it was like several $100s worth of work. And I was like, oh, man, I wish I would have asked the question, how much is this going to cost? But between his stuff and my Pinterest stuff, I just kept adding on. And finally, I had to delete the app. And to this day, I've not gone back because I can't be trusted with Pinterest.
Well, I would say that's a pretty good contractor, though, that's like letting you have the creative ability and actually bringing you stuff, because a lot of them are like, we're doing what we said at the beginning and that's all.
Or change order after change order after change order. And those change order fees, they start to accumulate pretty quickly. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, but you're right. That really did help me now that you say that and I think about it. The color scheme and the wood, all of it, the flooring types, like that really did help. Well, I should say me and Kaya, because I left a lot of it in her hands. But yeah, that's so fun. Okay. I know that you have talked about loving the home that you have. I think I've heard you say. I think I've been in this house for about 10 years. When I first moved here, it was just a means to an end. Cheapest house in the neighborhood. Kids and I were going out on our own. We needed something affordable. I kind of hated it, had no character. And it was the water intrusion that forced me to make some changes. And although the footprint is the same and the exterior is kind of the same, I've done a few things that make it a little more appealing to the eyes. But for the most part, when I walk in the door every day, I don't hate my house. Like I kind of love my little space, my little haven. What kind of advice would you give for people who maybe aren't where they want to be to create a space that they want with what they've got?
So that was kind of me in our last house. And we lived there for, almost 15 years. And I kept thinking we were going to move into our forever home. And so maybe 5 years in, it's kind of when I started doing some of the like real renovations to make the house the way I wanted, because I had just decided, okay, this is where we're going to be until we move. I'm going to make sure that it's how I want it to a certain degree without pricing it out of our neighborhood or whatever. And doing a lot of stuff myself, I was able to make the changes. But I think it happened when it was just like a perspective change, when I had to go through the practice of, well, this is where I'm at right now. How can I find the gratitude, I guess is the right word, for where I'm living? And so I would say something that I do a lot, and it might drive my husband crazy, is rearranging rooms. So it kind of gives it a fresh feel, maybe. Decluttering is a big one. Making sure that it's decluttered so that you're not feeling overwhelmed, especially if it's a small space. And then playing with your layout, because sometimes your initial thought of how furniture should go, if you switch it up, it could actually make the space even function better and gives you a feeling of a change without having to spend a lot of money. But paint is a big one. Adding fabrics, those will all help, soften a space and make it feel a little more homey. And honestly, just having that perspective change of just being grateful that, you have a house and you can play with it and have fun with it.
That's true. I was smiling so hard and I was trying so hard not to laugh. It's amazing how similar we are. When I first got married, I did the same thing. I moved the furniture all the time. And my husband, he worked shift work at the mill, and he would come home and everything would be rearranged so often and it would drive him nuts. I did it
Yes.
so many times.
My husband would travel and he would always text me or call on the way home. So what's different?
Oh, it's funny. It's cute.
And he hated change. So it took him a while to get used to coming home to a different house every time.
I know the feeling. Okay, so I've lived through renovations. You've lived through renovations. What advice would you give to people who are getting ready to live through a renovation project?
Well, you can plan on your life being disrupted because any renovation, big or small, it's going to disrupt something if you're actually living in the house. When I was doing my kitchens, it was setting up like a temporary kitchen somewhere. Thankfully, we had a half bath next to the kitchen for the last house renovation. And so we could kind of wash dishes, but just setting up an area that maybe has a microwave or, disposable plates and things are helpful too. But even if it's a bedroom, just finding another place to kind of set up so that you feel comfortable during it. Most renovations take longer than you think. So if you're doing it yourself or it's a contractor, they just normally take a lot longer. So, and then I would just, if you do have a contractor, I would just try to stay involved because the more you can make sure that it's how you discuss, because sometimes there's a disconnect between even like the general contractor who's hiring out subs, communication sometimes gets lost in translation. So just making sure that you stay involved so that you can catch things earlier and it's not too far down the road. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, those are all good expectations to set. I remember vividly doing dishes in the bathroom is not fun. It's very humbling.
Yes.
But if you're going to stay in your house and live through the renovation, I mean, you're going to have to make adjustments. Not just when we did the remodel, but stuff happens with your house. You've got maintenance all the time. You need to have contractors in and out, whether they're maintenance contractors for HVAC or plumbing, electric, whatever it is, or something needs to be fixed or you want something updated. I've hired lots of people and I see a trend and I want to see if you have also experienced the same thing, that sometimes they don't show up when they're supposed to show up. They're late and they don't bother to call, or they have to bump you up in the schedule and now they're coming when you weren't expecting them. Do you see that in your world?
The company that I work for now, Nichols Design Build, we really try to stay on the schedule and hold our trade partners to our standards so that they are there when they say they're going to be there. But goodness, I have experienced where I have taken off work to be home and they don't show up. Yeah. Or we rented a hotel room once because they were supposed to finish our floors and they did not even start work that day until like 5 o'clock. So they were, of course, not finished that day. It can be very, very frustrating.
Yeah.
You don't have the right contractor.
And thankfully, I work from home, so I didn't have the issue of taking off of work, but I also manage the draw pipeline for renovation projects nationwide. And this just seems to be a common thread. People get very, very frustrated for the same reason. They took work off, or they had mom go over to the house or a cousin or somebody to let the contractor in and they didn't show, and it's a huge inconvenience. And for me, I hear it so often that it's almost like it's just par for the course. It's just the way that it is. But the frustrating part for me was I would clean a job site. You move all big stuff out of the way so they can get to wherever they need to get to. You clean it, and then after they leave, you got to clean it all up again. And so you do all that prep work. And I don't think contractors realize when you just show up to the house, it's not like the homeowner is just let you in and there you go. Like there's work that we have to do ahead of time and there's preparation that we have to do. And I do see it more with the smaller contractors than maybe with those, boy, how do I say this tactfully? I almost want to say like mom and pop type contractors. I see that more, but with the larger ones that run their business like a business, I see it less. Would you agree?
Yes, I would agree.
Along those lines, what advice would you give to a homeowner on how to find a quality contractor?
The biggest thing I would say is if you know somebody that's used a contractor that they have liked, start theirs with a referral. The other thing would just be the contractor, does they have a warranty? Are they going to stand behind their work? Because, I mean, there's a lot of times that things aren't going to go as planned and things will happen after they leave. And that's just that's going to happen. So you want somebody that's been around a while and that will come back and warranty their work and make sure that it's done the right way. So referrals, warranties, those are kind of the biggest things I would look for in a renovator.
That's a good suggestion. I hired a company to install a metal roof, and I think I reached out to 3 of them. I feel like only 2 of them responded. I might have gotten 3 bids. It's been so long now, I can't remember. But one company came, and it ended up being the company that I hired, and they came with a folder full of information, and right at the top was a copy of their certificate of liability insurance and their workers' comp. And I was like, this is amazing, because I asked for that in the lending world, but I don't think a homeowner would ever even think to ask for that.
That is one of the first things my husband asks, because he is in the insurance industry. He's workers' comp industry. Yes, that is something I think I just take for granted. But yeah, you're right. Probably most people don't think to ask those questions either.
Yeah, yep. And I've learned in the state of Indiana, and there are other states like this too, that even if they're not required to carry workers' comp, they have to have a waiver, and it must be filed with the state. So either you have coverage or you have the waiver. But if you don't have either one, we're in trouble. It actually never ceases to amaze me how many contractors don't know their state's workers' compensation guidelines. We're constantly educating people on that, and it's like, boy, you've been doing this for 20, 30 years. That's kind of scary. I know more about your workers' comp laws than you do. Okay, so what's on the agenda for you in terms of renovation? Any new renovation projects coming up?
So I think our master bath will be the next big project. It's kind of the thing that's, I guess, the most blaring in our daily life. So we did a whole first floor renovation, and that's kind of the last little bit of it.
Me too. I have 2 of them, the master and the hall. I did the flooring and I replaced the toilets, but the showers, they need to be redone, and the cabinets and the vanities. The whole house is tiled, and the only tile that was different was the utility rooms and the bathrooms. And in hindsight, I wish I just would have tiled the entire house one tile. We just couldn't find a tile that we liked for the bathrooms and the utility room. And I might have enough left over to retile, so I would probably change that too. But I'm the same. My bathrooms, they're the last on the list.
Yeah, and the kitchen was inconvenient, but the bathroom will be pretty inconvenient too.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of saving up for that next big project, because the kitchen was so expensive.
Yeah, it's true. I just keep thinking about all that construction dust, and it's like, oh, I think I just want to move out. But then the idea of moving out it's too much. It's too much for me.
I think my husband needs a little bit of a break from renovations.
Fun stuff. Okay, so last, how would individuals contact you and your company? Tell us a little about your company and how they would contact you if they want to reach out about their own remodeling plans.
So Nicholas Design Build is a design build company, which is a little different than most general contractors. We have all of our designers they're in-house. So our designers and our carpenters. The process takes a little bit longer because it's full start to finish. But I would say that you're going to get a better experience. Just, you get what you pay for a lot of times. So we really try to kind of give that white glove hand-holding experience. So yeah, you can find us at nicholasdesignbuild.com. If you fill out a form online, we will contact you and start the process.
Wonderful.
Put you in touch with one of our designers.
Good information. Thanks so much, Angela, for sharing your experience, your tips and tricks. It's been a joy meeting with you, and thank you for contributing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now the legalese required to appease attorneys, compliance officers, and regulators. This podcast is hosted by Jennifer Goldsby, NMLS number 591226, Vice President, Renovation Lending. The topics discussed herein reflect my personal opinion. They do not represent the opinions of Diamond Residential Mortgage Corporation and its management. Discussions about loan programs in this podcast are not a commitment to make a loan. Programs, approvals, rates, fees, and loan terms are subject to loan applications, credit risk, appraisal evaluation, underwriting guidelines, and other lending or qualification criteria and limitations, and are subject to change without notice. Not all products are available in all states. Not all borrowers will qualify. Diamond Residential Mortgage Corporation, 582 Oakwood Avenue, Lake Forest, Illinois, 60045, 847-244-9301. NMLS number 1-86805. For licensing information, go to nmlsconsumeraccess.org/entity details. diamond.aspx/company/186805. Equal housing opportunity. Diamond Residential Mortgage Corporation is not affiliated with or acting on behalf of or at the direction of FHA, VA, USDA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or any governmental body or agency.